Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Aaron Dean. The family of a black man who died at a Virginia mental health facility has agreed to an $8.5 million settlement. The family of 28-year-old Arvo Artiano sued the state of Virginia, Henrico County, and the sheriff. He was placed under an emergency custody order by the county police officers in March. He died 3 days later while being admitted to the mental health facility. Now, he was handcuffed and pinned down by security officers for 12 minutes until he went limp. The state's chief medical examiner ruled the death a homicide by asphyxiation. 7 sheriff's deputies and 1 hospital worker are charged with second-degree murder. The site of the Parkland, Florida school shooting will be demolished at the end of the current school year. That's where a gunman murdered 17 people and wounded 17 others in 2018. Broward County school officials say that it's for the well-being of the students and staff on campus. The building at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School has been preserved as a crime scene. It's unclear if a memorial will be built at the site. Out Magazine, The Advocate, and Equal Pride are proud sponsors of Unleashed LGBTQ. It's happening in Dallas, Texas, and we spoke with some of the organizers and panelists about why this event is so special. As a former state rep for Pennsylvania and an LGBTQ plus activist, what motivated you to get involved with Unleashed 2023?
You know, it was a lot of things, and we'll have some time to talk about some of the other amazing participants and some of the programs. But for me, you know, I ended a 10-year career in the House of Representatives in November, and I knew that I wanted to make sure that the work that I had been doing on women's and reproductive rights, on racial and ethnic justice issues, and the LGBTQ plus civil rights work, that I wanted to make sure that I continued in that advocacy space and that I continued to do that work as nationwide as possible. And, you know, Unleashed was the sort of a perfect opportunity to come together with a lot of other leaders and a lot of other industries who are both LGBTQ and are sort of leading with their values. And it seemed like a really comfortable place to be.
Well, Unleashed LGBTQ offers a wide range of events and activities, from brand activation to keynote speakers. Could you highlight some of the key aspects of the event that attendees can look forward to?
You know, I think of it as sort of one of those all-inclusive opportunities to sort of hear from LGBTQ plus leaders across all industries. Some of this stuff is fascinating to some people. Some of it's boring to some people. For me, the opportunity to hear from leaders in art and entertainment, to hear from people in the tech space and in the financial sector space, to be able to hear from people that are telling our stories and our narratives, it seems really critically important, not just to the work I'm doing, but to understanding the communities that we are doing this work for. The other thing I think that's really important about Unleashed LGBTQ is just sort of, aside from the diversity of the programming, the participants are as broad as the LGBTQ plus communities are. And that's, you know, sometimes that's not always the case with LGBTQ plus spaces, and it certainly is with Unleashed. And I think that in and of itself is an opportunity for a lot of us to learn from one another in places where we are not always, and to stop assuming a certain understanding or assuming knowledge, but actually gaining it.
Yeah. Well, and even to that point, you know, we're always talking about amplifying voices and telling the stories of, you know, different groups and marginalized communities. How can this event continue to do that, not only for, you know, inside the community, but also those who are not within it?
Yeah, you know, I had a friend years ago, Aaron, who ran for a city council position in a major city in America. He didn't win, but he was a Latinx scientist. And he used to say to me, don't pretend to give a voice to the voiceless. Give them a microphone. And Unleashed LGBTQ is exactly that. It is putting the microphone in the hands of our leaders, our experts, the people in our communities that have gained the experience, that have the real world empathy to inform all of us in so many better ways. And so for me, being able to hear directly from leaders like India Moore, Daniel Francesi, being able to hear from Billy Eichner, those are people that are leading as queer people in industries that haven't always, still aren't supportive of LGBTQIA plus individuals. And there's a lot to learn from them.
You mentioned there, like, ultimately coming out led you to walk away from everything you've been working towards. And how does it feel to be back doing what you love? It must feel great.
Yeah, there's a huge, like, weight lifted off of me, a big sigh of relief. At first, it was selfishly, it was from me and my reasonings why I wanted to be back out there on the track. It's just, again, it's all I've ever known. But now, you know, I'm slowly getting to meet people who've always been involved in the industry, or they work in the industry, or they've been fans of the sport, who are, you know, not out, or some of them may be out in the struggles that they faced at the track. So knowing that I now have this opportunity to help create change, to make the sport a more inclusive and welcoming sport for all, it's making me realize that there's a lot that can be done, and we need to figure out how to work together to achieve that.
How do you envision that? I mean, you just mentioned it, but how do you envision NASCAR creating a more inclusive and welcoming environment for marginalized community? You know, what can be done?
Well, firstly, I think NASCAR, you know, although there's a lot that can be done for any sports organization, but NASCAR has been making strides to make it a more inclusive space. They donate throughout the year to various pride organizations across the country and charities. They host events internally and externally, but media tends to take the sport of NASCAR to really kind of paint it towards one side and what it should be, and this is what you should expect while going to race. And, you know, there could be a lot of negativity around it, but there's a lot of positivity. So I think if we can continue, you know, pushing those efforts and putting them more at the forefront as to what NASCAR is doing to make it a better place versus what they've done in the past, I think is where we're going to see the sport shine. And then having someone like me, you know, I'm really proud to help drive the sport into new directions, bring new brands to the sport, overall just, you know, continue building the sport, because it's a really great one. And it's, you know, it's America's biggest sport from February through September until football season kicks in. So it's got big roots here in America, and it needs to catch up to 2023.
How important are networking and professional events like this for the queer community? What can it do for this community?
You know, I think it's important for us to network in safe environments, but also kind of different environments. I think we're always, as LGBTQ community, have to kind of have our guard up.
In the times that we're in, where there are just anti-LGBTQ laws just circulating the country everywhere, why was it important to, you know, make sure that this event was still in Texas? Of course, a state that we know is very conservative, but why was it important to be like, you know what, we're still going to do it here, and this is what it is?
Absolutely, we stand by that 100%. You know, we've gotten some feedback like, how dare you do this in Texas with all of these laws being passed, what Texas is known for. A lot of people who might not have been to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, don't realize we have massive gay populations, you know, and we don't need to run off to California or somewhere to preach to the choir. You know, I think we really do need to stand in our space and say, you know what, we're here, we're not going anywhere. I forgot the we're queer part. We're here, we're queer, we're not going anywhere. This is, you know, a place that we want to host this. All of us who are organizing this event are from Texas. You know, we found an amazing venue to host it. We found a great lineup that was willing to come out here, you know, to think about taking it to New York or California just because, you know, it's more liberal there, I think is an absolute mistake. You know, more events need to be happening in Texas and Florida and Arkansas, you know, just to show people that, you know, we were planting our roots, and, you know, we're taking a stand.
Thanks so much for watching Advocate Today. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to stream us live, and you can even subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Aaron Dean.